I remember hearing people talk about the 4-hour work week, and I'm going to be honest, I just wasn't sure what to make of it. My brain tried to understand how that could even be possible without kind of subscribing to some kind of unethical scheme, but I actually couldn't. So I did what I always did back then when I was faced with something that challenged my belief system. I ran the opposite direction and pretended that it didn't exist. Now, about 12 years later after I first heard about this, I've come to find out that many of the principles that Tim shared in the book would have not only sped up the growth in my business by at least 8 years, but I would have had way more joy and fulfillment in my life and would have been able to create more amazing experiences with my family. Because you really can have a 4-hour work week if that's what you want. And there really are ways to get more done in less time. And that's what we want to share with you today. If you're willing to lean in and take Tim's advice so you really can create more without having to do more, well then, let's go. It's time to redefine leadership. Welcome to Modern Leadership, where we see things differently. Our channel is all about empowering entrepreneurs like you to achieve the next level of success in business and life. We believe that you can create a massive impact in the world without compromising your personal life or family time to do so.
We're committed to providing you with actionable tips and strategies weekly to make that possible. So if you're ready to become a modern leader and make a lasting difference in the world, consider subscribing. Turn on notifications and dive into our community. We want to thank you for being here because the world needs your leadership now more than ever. Let's go. So for those who haven't actually read the book, The 4-Hour Work Week, can you share a quick breakdown of what the book is?
Yes, absolutely. I'm going to summarize this into 4 different pieces that Tim talked about in the book. And I also do want to share, as we go through this video, I want to share not only some of the quotes that really stuck out to me, but also some of the philosophies that he has shared, which was way far ahead of his time. This actually came out in 2007. I wish I had plugged into it back then, but this is that process of growth, right? Where sometimes we run the opposite direction, but in reality, that's the thing we need the most. And so how he defines this is he really talks about it in 4 different, I don't want to say steps, but in a 4-step process. The first one is definition. What he means by that is defining what and how you want to live. So what I mean is you may want a 4-hour work week. You might want a 20-hour work week. You might want to work in a different country. But really it's about defining what you truly want. And it's crazy how this all starts because when I heard the 4-hour work week, I thought he was basically saying that I had to work a 4-hour work week. But no, he's that's what he wanted to do. So he found out how to build systems and to put things in place to make it possible. But you don't have to want to work 4 hours. I know for me, I don't want to. I actually want to work a little bit more because it actually fulfills me in the morning when I do that so that I can do the other fun things that I do during the rest of the day, right? But the first step that he talks about is defining what you really want and what you want it to look like. Second step is elimination. Based off of what you're doing right now, what are some of the time wasters that are not heading you in the direction of what you want? If you want to do less, but achieve more, then you got to ask yourself, what are some of the activities that I'm doing that are heading me in the opposite direction? Maybe I'm saying yes to too much. Maybe I'm taking on too much, right? So really it's about thinking about where you are right now and what can you eliminate that are the real time wasters and they're not actually helping you actually achieve the goal you want to achieve. The third step of the book talks about automation. This is finding a virtual assistant. This could be outsourcing things to a program or to a system or automate, all of those kind of pieces. It's thinking about what are the things that you absolutely need to do, what's in your strength zone, what do you love doing? We'll talk a little bit about that as we go through this whole entire process. But really it's about thinking these things have to be done, but do they have to be done by you? And he talks about some frameworks, and we'll share some of them here on this call with you. But really it's about asking yourself, how could I automate this to someone else so that I don't have to do it? And the fourth piece is liberation. What he means is he really was talking about liberating people from the office environment. Because I don't know about you guys, but being in the office environment was a huge time waster. Even for me, working at LAPD, I'm sure for you working at UCLA, there's so many things that happen in the office environment that literally is a huge waste of time. Now we've come pretty far. After COVID, now a lot of people do work from home, which is way ahead of the time. But remember, this came out in 2007, where he's we spend so much wasted time in these kind of cubicles and in these kind of offices. And he has a way to actually talk to your boss and get them to see how much more productive you will be at home. That also will help us not only feel more fulfilled because we're going to be spending more time at home, but being out of negativity and the toxic environment that sometimes can come at work. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does.
So those are those 4 pieces. He talks about definition, elimination, automation, and liberation. And these are all things that I wish I had heard in 2007. I almost said 2017, but it was 10 years before that in 2007. So I'd love to hear from you. Can you share maybe a personal experience when you applied one of Tim Ferriss's productivity tips? And I know we have some quotes, but really, like, I know you're the productivity queen, right? So I know that a lot of these things you have implemented. So I'm curious, like, if you could share a personal experience.
Yeah, and I want to highlight a quote that he has in the book. He says, by working only when you are most effective, life is more productive and more enjoyable. It's the perfect example of having your cake and eating it too. Mm-hmm. So this really struck me because I know that I can be more efficient than I am or that I was. And I think that one of the main things that I realized was that there were certain times in the day that I was more productive than others. There were certain times where I had more physical energy and more mental energy. So I kind of took those and I ran with it. I really took this quote to heart because I thought, well, when am I most effective? When I do have that energy, because energy is everything to me. And I know that I have all of these things going on and I have to really pour into some of the most important things that I do in the day when I do have that energy. So that was one way that I took that particular quote from him.
Yeah, I like that. And I remember we read that book called The Productivity Project, right?
Yes.
And that talks about what's called your universal prime time. And that is like there's some time during your day where you get more done, right? And asking yourself the most important tasks, the things that moves the needle forward the most, am I doing those things in my universal prime time, right? I mean, for example, these videos are done right after we get done off a live workshop that we have on YouTube, right? Because this time in the morning is when I'm most productive. If you were to put a camera in front of me anytime after noon, I would be like, my brain would not be able to function, right? So you got to ask yourself, like, how can I make the best use of my universal prime time? It's not that you have more hours. It's just that when you do things within your universal prime time, you get more done in less time.
And when it's a shortened window, then you start to prioritize.
Yep. 100%. That's Parkinson's law, right? Depending on how much stuff you have, how many hours you have to do it, that's how long you'll take to do it, right? So if you have 3 weeks to do a project, you'll probably get it in just under, 2 3/4 weeks. But if you have like 4 hours to do it, you also do it in 4 hours. Yeah. It's kind of like it helps us eliminate any of the time wasters because we're like, we absolutely can't waste any time.
Exactly. So how do you think that Tim Ferriss's ideas on outsourcing and automation can be applied to different businesses or even professions?
Yeah, we were actually just having a conversation today with Annie, one of our master coaches, who's like really great at automating and putting systems in place and helping teaching people like that, right? And one of the things we talked about today is like not only how that applies to business, but also how that applies to your personal life when it comes to your health, when it comes to the family time, when it comes to all of these different things. Now, there is a really powerful quote that Tim shared, and I want to share it with you right now, but it's a universal principle. This is not just all about a 4-hour work week when it comes to business, but also how can you spend more higher quality time with family without having to spend thousands and thousands of hours, right? It's like one of those things where you can't do all of the things that you want to do for the same amount of time that you want to do them. But what you can do is you can be most productive. So what he says is never automate something that can be eliminated and never delegate something that can be automated or streamlined. Otherwise, you waste someone else's time instead of your own, which now wastes your hard-earned cash. How's that for an incentive to be effective and efficient? Yeah. So when we think about that, we're like, okay, what are some of the things that I can take off my plate and I can automate with some type of like software or systems or something that I can put in place so it doesn't have to be done by me, right? But like Annie said, if it needs a human's touch, then maybe you can outsource that to someone else, right? But either of those, you don't want to have things that are like, that you're outsourcing that shouldn't even be outsourced or done at all. Like that is also a waste of energy. Even if it's not your own, it's still a waste of your resources, which is your money. So being able to like not only be productive with what you do, but be productive with what other people on the team are doing, be productive with what the systems are doing for you. That's how you create this 4-hour work week or whatever your 4-hour work week looks like for you. All right. So can you give us some insight into what he says about how the people you spend the most time with can make you either more or less productive? We talk about that a lot here on the channel, right? You're the average of the 5, but he brings this up in terms of like, if you want to be more productive, make sure you're hanging out with productive people. So
yeah, and it has to do with, because we kind of model the same behaviors. of the people around us. So if others that we spend the most time with are not productive, they, stand at the water cooler and gossip about different things that are going on in the office or anything like that, then you are going to be that way as well. So we are social creatures. So when you are hanging out with people who are very productive, streamline, and they automate, then you are going to take on those behaviors as well. And he has this quote in his book, which is, "But you are the average of the 5 people you associate with most. So do not underestimate the effects of your pessimistic, unambitious, or disorganized friends. If someone isn't making you stronger, they are making you weaker."
Yeah, that's that's a punch in the stomach sometimes, right? But it is crazy because when we do hang out with people like that and we spend more time with them, we'll naturally take on the habits that they're taking on, right? There's an additional quote that I want to share with you here. It's one that I needed to hear. He says, "Most people are fast to stop you before you get started, but hesitate to get in the way if you're moving." So if you find that there's a lot of people who are coming up and who are saying, "Hey, I don't think you should do this," remember that a lot of times when you're first getting started, they're trying to protect you from something when it comes to like you doing that thing maybe that they've tried to do and they haven't been able to be successful at, or they're trying to protect you from the potential of having, failing. But if you're moving, they're very hesitant on actually saying something. And actually there's something that's holding them back going, well, they're moving forward, so I don't want to say anything, right? So this is one of those things where sometimes if somebody is like has their opinions and thoughts about me, I got to think about this is, am I moving or am I standing still? And are they like seeing me stand still and trying to convince me to stand still with them?
Yeah, and it's hard to stop a moving train, right?
Yeah, 100%. When you can create that momentum, it's unstoppable, right?
Yes.
Okay, love that. Okay, so in what ways do you think the 4-hour work week challenges traditional notions of success and work ethic?
So we've picked out so many quotes from this book because there's so many great ones. And I have this particular one that answers this question. And it's alternating periods of activity and rest is necessary to survive, let alone thrive. Capacity, interest, and mental endurance all wax and wane. Plan accordingly.
Yeah, 100%. Like I know that when I first got into my entrepreneurship journey, I was in the hustle mode, which is like always hustle, hustle, hustle. Mm-hmm. And I didn't realize what he was saying here is like everybody, like their energy, their motivation, everything waxes and wanes. It goes up and down. This is a part of the process. But it's like, are you just pushing through all of that? Or are you learning the lesson that it's trying to teach you, right? Mm-hmm. And I've noticed this about myself. And that is like when I push through, not only is what I'm producing subpar, it's not going to help me to produce more results. And I'm basically not giving myself the ability to recover so that I can get up to an exceptional version of me. And so anytime I go through this process, I remind myself, like, this is a part of what it looks like. This is what success looks like. It's the ups and downs. It's the, I'm excited today and motivated, but maybe tomorrow I'm not. Maybe I wake up on the wrong side of the bed. Maybe like whatever that is. Maybe there's a new obstacle. But in reality, this is the way that it works. And when I can recover, when I can realize that this is just a part of the system and how it's supposed to work out, it gives me the freedom to not beat myself up about it, but know that I need to recover so I can get back to game day tomorrow.
Yeah. Okay, so can you share what Tim says about fear?
Yeah, 100%. So when it comes to fear, I know that's something that does come up with, preventing people from taking action, right? But hearing what he shared, a couple of these quotes about fear, helped me to reframe it. He says, what we fear doing most is usually what we most need to do. Mm-hmm. So instead of using fear as like this mechanism of this is like why I shouldn't do this, you can actually switch it and go, wait, I'm afraid of this. So this might be the thing that I need to do, because that's how my brain works. My brain wants me to keep me safe and in the past and like based off of like, oh, maybe I'm not good enough because I don't have to do uncomfortable things. But if I'm feeling fear right now, this must be the actual indicator that I should lean in instead. The next one he says is a person's success in life can usually be measured by the number of uncomfortable conversations he or she is willing to have. Once again, having uncomfortable conversations about your business and selling something or with your significant other, like those are the ones that move the needle forward the most. And so how could you use those as signs you're on the right track instead of signs that you're on the wrong? That's really what the game changer was for me.
Yeah.
Let me see. I want to like really talk about like this last quote, all right? Because this one like resonated with me the most, and I want you to kind of like share it because it's a really powerful quote that if you lean into, you'll be able to hold all the pieces that we talked about here together in synergy with each other.
Yeah. So the quote is, for all the most important things, the timing always sucks. Waiting for a good time to quit your job, the stars will never align, and the traffic lights of life will never all be green at the same time. The universe doesn't conspire against you, but it doesn't go out of its way to line up with the pins either. Conditions are never perfect. Someday is a disease that will take your dreams to the grave with you. Pro and con lists are just as bad. If it's important to you and you want to do it eventually, just do it and course correct along the way.
Yeah, I love that a lot because I know for me, I can very easily convince myself it's not right time right now. I don't have enough money. I don't have enough this. I don't have time. I don't know enough people. I don't have a big enough network. And all of those things convince me to not take the action, right? But what he's saying is like, it's not going to be where everything, all the stars align. Like you're not just going to get all of the green traffic lights, especially if you're in Los Angeles. Like that is not going to happen, my friend. You have to be willing to get out there, to drive, to grab the steering wheel and actually put yourself on the road. And knowing that you're going to get there, it's just you might need to take a few other detours, make a few different other direction changes. There might be some crashes on the freeway, right? It's all about the process of going through this and being willing to feel that fear and to do it anyway. So we talked a lot about Tim's ideas and philosophies around how to get yourself to not only take action, but to design a life that you truly want. But some people might get to this point and wonder, like, what are some of the most important habits for me to perform to be able to create this kind of like 4-hour work week? Don't worry, because we got you covered. Tap the screen to watch this next video where we talk about Stephen Covey's book and the most important habit to lean into. And if you haven't heard, we actually have a free business leadership book club where we read powerful books, not only like Tim's and Stephen's, but many other influential leaders so that we can help get more done in less time without having to sacrifice family time or our physical or mental health. If you're not a part of the team, grab a link inside of the description below. We'd love to have you. Thank you for what you do out there every single day and keep leading from the front. Bye.